No. Before Cage could just do an entire wardrobe change because we can't wear a bleaker hat together. The same bleaker hat. Welcome back to Lucas the Tigers and Bronze. Oh my. It's really good to be back doing a live show with you guys. I don't know if Cage told you I was on vacation in Vail this week. This is the first time in my life I felt my age because snowboarding was never harder. It has never been harder. My legs were sore. I couldn't keep up, but it's more motivation for the year ahead. I wanted to hit record because we were wearing the same hat, and Cage was like, no, Ian, come bring me a different one. So I didn't want a whole wardrobe change. I didn't want all that. I wanted him to capture his real-life thoughts right here for you guys. And two things, as we get into the PWCC weekly show, that are pressing. When I say pressing, are 30, 60 days.
Wait, before you do that, you just got back from snowboarding, and the thing you're going to tell the audience about snowboarding is that it was easy for it to be harder, and that made you feel old. Usually when you get older, it's not as easy to be hard. I mean, that's kind of backwards, right? No? I mean, I don't want to shit on a sponsor here. I mean, you turn the radio on these days, and I mean, at my age, clearly I should need some sort of pills. And you clearly don't, because look what you did, man. Boom. It was hard. I mean, that's what you come back from snowboarding with. See what you missed?
You're giving me a very grim outlook for the next 10 years because I was really disappointing that snowboarding was hard, and now I'm just...
It's all right. Listen, it could be worse. You could have went to Culture Collision. And did you see, I posted in my story, did you see Paul Wax, Mikey, fractured his ankle playing basketball? Yes. I mean, it could be worse. It could be, that's hobby injuries, man. There's no workers' compensation for that.
How do you know he fractured his ankle?
Because he posted it in his story.
Look
at my ankle. I'm sitting here. Yeah, it was alive, and he's like, hey, I'm sitting here in Atlanta, and I came here to play a basketball game, and my ankle is fractured. And he showed his normal ankle and the other ankle, and it's like a tennis ball in it.
But so condolences. I hope quick recovery. Injuries suck, man.
Yep.
I mean, if you're like Burrow, you could probably play. But I thought Mikey was playing on Sunday.
I'm just telling you. Take a look at my story if you want to pull your phone up. It's there. I reposted it because, it's just a casualty of the hobby, I guess. One of those.
Would you rather an ankle sprain or a broken ankle?
I think the preference is always not to break a bone, wherever it's possible. I would say that there are probably some exceptions to this in sport injuries. I had a bad hip injury where I didn't break a bone, but the entire bone came out of the socket. Bo Jackson's is one where I think he probably would have been better off, if you're allowed to say that, if he would have fractured his bone, but he was running at such speed and such force that the bone actually came out of the hip. And just shredded the hip so badly, his hip might have been able to recover if he was fractured.
He was running so fast that
he
dislocated his hip.
So the way he caught it, the way that he went down and they were tackling, and he was running with such force and speed. He put his leg in the ground so hard that when he got tackled, the bone actually went out, it dislocated out of the hip. So pretty crazy.
Well, Mikey, from all of us at Luca Nation, speedy recovery, brother.
Yeah, man, look.
I believe you.
Little story in the hospital. Poor guy. It's all right. Maybe he should have played Sunday, it's just one of those things.
Well, that's what I thought. I thought the East-West game was on Sunday. But anyway,
the Brock Purdy thing, by the way, we can get into that. But the Brock Purdy thing is real. As I put my phone down, I noticed that I've sold all of my Brock Purdy Panini Direct cards that I've pulled out of packs. Every one of them has been sold. Just whatever you're asking price, boom, it sells. So people are, I've made a bunch of stories. I've made a bunch of posts about, be careful with what you invest in. But people like riding that hot hand, man. They like jumping in on that stuff. So interesting. Got a lot of topics for you today.
That's human nature, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think it is? What do you think it is that drives that behavior?
A couple things. It's gambling. So it is gambling still. And on different levels of gambling, right? So
does it feel like less of a gamble because we've seen a little bit? Like others have gotten into it, so I'm gambling less? There's that illusion?
Yeah, I mean, listen, what we've noticed with the hobby is whether you're a collector, investor, an old head, new head, you name it, whether you are a sports card influencer, was that SCI, sports card influencer, SCI, and you're now doing promotions of your children and card kids or whatever it is that might be out there, sports card influencer, SCI. People like to show off for the camera. I mean, look, I'm doing little weird videos myself with my ugly mug, talking over it. I got my prop plays ready to go. I got a video in the works. I'll probably do it after we record this episode, get it up today. But the hobby, now more than ever, with the world being shrunk by the internet, is a lot of show off. It's a lot of, hey, look at my stuff. Hey, look at what I have. Hey, look at what I own. Look at the trade I just made. I just traded 300 cards to get this one MJ Grail. I mean, it's and how happy I am that the other people who saw that I did this are now talking about me doing it. That's a big part of the hobby. So I can understand if somebody believes in Brock Purdy and wants to put their bet on Brock Purdy, and they can't go out readily and buy a lot of his cards because there's not a ton of them out there. They see, okay, Panini Digital. I happen to have two. Like fake autographs. They're like mosaic, like autographs numbered at 75. And I posted them both for sale. I think I sold, $100-something bucks, which is insane. And somebody is going to buy those.
Just to give you guys context, Tyrese Maxey's from the first ever Prism release are like $15 to $20.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't even know if they're that much anymore. But anyway, so here's somebody's going to buy that, and if he wins tomorrow and he's on his way to the Super Bowl, they'll post it. Part of it is, hey, look what I bought this beforehand. I had this. Look, it's ready to show off. I'm ready to buy it. I'm ready to look. I'm right. I was on him early enough to buy it, and you can go a bunch of ways with that. Hey, get the pat on the back, get the the appreciation from the community, and look what I did. Maybe you then relist it on Monday and hope to sell it for more because you were able to buy it with a little bit of a risk there. That's why I say the gamble, right? If Jalen Hurts cards probably are a little cheaper today than they will be on Monday if he wins. There's that gamble. There's that risk. There's that potential there. So I think
people do the other three quarterbacks in this.
AFC. I think all of them. Just in a temporary thing. I think right now, anything you can purchase today of any of the four quarterbacks will be either worth more or less on Monday, depending upon them winning or losing. I do believe that to be the case.
So for me, just having a little bit of a week off and trying to get more perspective, to me, this, from a card perspective, from a legacy perspective, this Mahomes-Burrow matchup has so much to gain for both quarterbacks and so much to lose for both quarterbacks. And it reminds me a little bit of you remember Manning versus Brady in 100%. Like the mid to late 2000s?
Yep.
Well, when I say that, where's your instinct go? Where's your intuition go? Which one of those is the Manning and which is the Brady?
So I've had this conversation, right? But what's funny is you can make the comparison, but right now Burrow has beaten Brady every time they played. So you'd think Burrow is more of the Brady. And we're having this conversation right now where Mahomes has won the MVPs, Mahomes has won the Super Bowls, and has basically won every home game he's ever played in. When he's not playing against Joe Burrow in the playoffs, and so you'd like to think that Mahomes is that Brady. In 4 or 5 years, we could look back at that statement and be like, wow, clearly Mahomes was the Manning. He's the one that is the one that didn't win all the Super Bowls and can't beat the other guy, head to head and blah, blah, blah. Why I say this, why I say Burrow is more Manning, is because I honestly think that Manning was the better traditional quarterback. Brady for a long time was a system quarterback. Brady for a long time was somebody who, was not relied on per se. Manning was always like, okay, the signal caller, the more, the more in his own mind, the whole Omaha baloney. And I just think Burrow, to me, is more of that. It's more in the head than the physical abilities. Not that Brady has, Brady wasn't a scrambler. It's a tough thing because
it's not apples to apples, but yeah. It's interesting. And why I bring that up is what I've noticed in this week's weekly auction cages, people are holding their Burrow. Man, people right now, this last week, Burrow's beloved. I watched the JJ Redick podcast. Apparently, he's now JJ's favorite player. Like, it's interesting when that happens, where a player wins kind of the hearts of the community. Nobody is selling high-end Burrow right now. None. Whereas Mahomes' cage, there's probably 15 high-end contenders, really high-grade Mahomes cards in this weekly auction, and I found that interesting.
Can I tell you why I think that is?
Tell me.
Burrow hasn't hit the ceiling yet. Okay, so there's still, remember we took that potential energy, we talk about the potential in there. So Mahomes already won the MVP, already won the Super Bowl. And the upside from Mahomes was huge, still is huge, but was huge.
Even greater than Burrow's.
But remember, when he won those things, we were thinking like, it does. And that's part of the reason why you see people selling. Because even though there's that upside, the thought on Mahomes, and I think you will probably echo this, and I'm not saying this is a wrong thought, but the thought on Mahomes coming into this year, coming into last year was, he is head and shoulders above everyone else. There's Mahomes, and then there's everybody else fighting for the level below Mahomes. There's that Allen, Burrow, everybody else. Even some of these young guys can get in there, but Mahomes is the cream of the crop. Mahomes is the guy who could be Tom Brady, which meant there was a floor for Mahomes. If you were investing in Mahomes, you had that upside. You had that Brady potential. He was going to win more MVPs and more Super Bowls and more hardware and chase Brady. And there was never going to be somebody there who could really challenge him for that. And that anybody could be like, well, here's really the next Brady. And if there is somebody else who could take the mantle of that next GOAT, that next Brady, and it's not Mahomes, then I think what that does is it kind of fizzles away that floor that people thought was there. And that when you were investing, thinking, all right, well, it's not going to go lower than here. His cards have a floor. He's, already an all-time great. He's already a Hall of Famer. It can only go up. And there's always this support. I think now that you have this Burrow in here, kind of, eating away at some of that confidence that you had in Mahomes, it makes people a little more nervous. And I think Mahomes has a lot to lose now, more than anybody ever really thought he had to lose, because, Burrow beats him again and beats him 4 times. And then Burrow goes on to win the Super Bowl. Now you have a Super Bowl for Burrow, Super Bowl for Mahomes. Burrow doesn't have the MVP, but if you go back and listen to our show before the whole Buffalo Bills thing, I was saying Burrow should win the MVP this year. I know he was a longer shot. I also said LeBron should win the MVP, and by the way, his odds have come down significantly from when I said that too.
Well, we'll get into LeBron. That was my second topic in the...
No, but I love this here, and I'm going to tell you something, and you're going to be surprised by this, okay? It's very quick that the Burrow fandom can turn. Very quick. If I were a Burrow guy, and I was buying Burrow when he was injured, saying this guy is a can't miss, right? This guy his stuff is too cheap. Now's an opportunity. We had that when Mahomes hurt his knee in season that one year too. There was a little bit of a dip.
But the Burrow call was, I remember that, buy Burrow before he got hurt. He got an ACL, so you had a whole 9 months to buy him before.
Yeah, plenty of time. Burrow is almost priced for perfection now.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that he's expensive, and I don't mean that there's not room for him to go up, but everyone's holding their Burrows. And when everyone's holding their Burrows, like you're saying, you look in this weekly auction here, when everyone's holding their Burrows, what that means is everyone who's holding their stuff is expecting him to win tomorrow, and probably expecting him to go to the Super Bowl and win that too. And I do believe the winner of the AFC does win the Super Bowl. But what happens if Mahomes goes out there and has his flu game? He has that ankle, and he has that Kobe with the dislocated finger, the whole 9 yards, and he goes out there and does what people think Mahomes should do at home, and all of a sudden the mystique of Joe Cool and the Burrow thing kind of fizzles out. But more importantly, Burrow as a person, he's done all the right things, he's said all the right things. And it's okay to have swagger, man. People love swagger, but I've noticed in the last week or two, the swagger's turned to a little bit of like, I don't call it attitude, right? But it's like, it's almost an overconfidence. You know what I mean? It's almost like it's one thing to say, okay, I'm the underdog, right? I'm the guy who nobody expects to be here. That's what they were last year, right? And then to win as the underdog and, say some stuff and smoke a cigar, okay. But this year it's almost like, well, we're supposed to be here. Like, we're winning. And what are you supposed to say in the whole 9 yards? But you lose some of the underdog thing. And at a point this week, they were actually favored, right? Mahomes' injury has a lot to do with that in the whole 9 yards. But, you say 1 or 2 wrong things here, and all of a sudden it's, the Burrow love can really flip on its head pretty quickly. I've seen it happen. So I'd be a little concerned if I were holding Burrow now. I mean, look, everything could break right. He could win the Super Bowl. He can come in next year and be the favorite for the MVP and to go back and win the Super Bowl again and blah, blah, blah. You don't have to look much further.
35-17, the Chiefs win.
I think Chiefs win. I do. I think Chiefs win. I think Travis Kelce has a game. He's one of my prop plays for the week. I think Burrow also has a good game. We'll talk about that. But I do think the Chiefs win. I don't know if it's going to be 35-17, but I do think the Chiefs win. Guys, a couple years ago, it was Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. And Josh Allen was knocking on the door of being the guy who was going to take down Mahomes. And he didn't do it. And even last year, they had that epic battle with the 15 seconds left. And, you thought that Allen was going to take that next step. And coming into this season, remember Allen had all those wins. He had all those, all of a sudden this stuff was going up. There are a lot of similarities between where Burrow is right now and where Allen was. I know they're not the same type of quarterback.
One big difference, and people don't talk about this with the flu game either.
Yep.
People don't. So this whole season we talked about the Chiefs playing at sort of like 80%. Mm-hmm. Well, who's actually? It's not Mahomes playing at 80%. It's the team, right? It's a full 52-man roster. When these injuries happen, the team rallies. And that's what I expect. I expect the defense to come out and say, we have less margin for error today.
Of course.
And they play, because this defense has been so porous all year. I expect them to play above what they have played all year and Mahomes to do what he did all year. And I think that's a recipe for disaster when a team coming in, and especially with that overconfidence. I think that plays out really interesting.
I agree.
We talk about Jordan flu game. We don't talk about how that impacts the other 11 guys, knowing we got to show up for our guy tonight.
Yeah, look what Kelce did, right? Kelce had more catches than any tight end ever last week. I think that's going to happen again. I think they leave for the guy. I get the point that I was trying to make. I thought you were kind of the difference between Burrow and Allen is look at what people's opinion is on Josh Allen now. This was the can't miss guy. This was the guy who you have to invest that money in. You have to, the cards are going to fly. He's right up there with Mahomes, and now now Burrow has beaten Mahomes. He hasn't, taken the next step and won the Super Bowl, the whole deal. But he could lose again to Mahomes, and he's teetering on that, just like Allen was. And Allen had it, right? It wasn't Allen who was out there with 15 seconds left to stop Mahomes. It wasn't him. It was his defense.
Well, so, if you come from the sports betting space, I think a lot of people in cards do. They see how much the lines move week to week. So last week, the Bengals going into the Bills were not the number one seed, first off. Mm-hmm. They were plus 6, 2-1 to win.
5.5, yeah.
5.5, 6. Okay. Now they're going into Arrowhead, which is also a difficult place to play versus the 1 seed, and now they're a pick'em.
Yeah.
How does that make sense?
Because people think the Buffalo team was better than they were. I think Kansas City wins, man. I've been a huge Bengals fan the entire time.
Sure.
I've been a big fan. They have great weapons. They have good stuff, but I hate Mahomes and I hate the Chiefs. I'm a Raider fan.
You hate Mahomes?
I hate Mahomes and I hate the Chiefs. They're my division. Mahomes? They're my division rival. I'm a Raider fan. I hate really them.
Contention.
They're a playoff team last year. They beat the hell out of us all the time. So, I hate that. I hate Brady because, Brady cheated against us. There are people that, I hate. That doesn't mean that I can't respect their game and doesn't mean that I can't look at a line and look at, who's lining up and what the weapons are. Travis Kelce's going to score at least a touchdown tomorrow. He's going to probably score 2. Anytime touchdown score.
Is that your dream guest for us to get? Is Travis Kelce someone you want to have on the show? Because you hate the Chiefs, but you really admire Travis Kelce.
I just think... Dude, so you'll see this with my prop bets. This will come out. I'll probably have it out already. I talked about this last week. I talked about it the week before. I've been right every single time. The numbers don't always show it. But there's a reason why these teams and these quarterbacks are there and why they have succeeded. And there's a reason why even some of the teams that got knocked out last week were there. Tight end play is huge in this league. A good tight end is like Golden State having Draymond Green. They make a good quarterback into a great quarterback. They make a coach have the ability to scheme for a quarterback that may have some weaknesses. Watch what George Kittle does this week, right? Because it's game flow. Watch what Dallas Goedert does this week. Now, Goddard's going to be difficult because he has Warner lining up and shadowing him on the 49ers. But I have a feeling that what the Niners are going to do is they're going to put 3 guys right up at the line to try to avoid Jalen Hurts running. And when you take away Hurts running, if he's only going to get 2-3 yards because the middle linebackers are creeping up towards the line, you're going to be able to have some openings with dump-off passes to the tight end. Look at the play. Look at Hayden Hurst showing up last week. He's another one of my props this week for the Bengals. He's been a great
over tight ends to score touchdowns.
Tight end scored. If you bet tight ends to score touchdowns last week, there was a huge prop. Ravel posted it. Somebody put all 4 of the tight ends last week to score touchdowns first. 3 of them scored the first touchdown in the game. It was either Knox or Schultz that didn't. But you had Schultz, and you had Knox, and you had Travis Kelce, who scored twice last week. That was one of my props. And Kittle. So look at you have this great tight end play that's going to happen here, and it's going to be huge for the Niners because the Eagles are going to be all over Brock Purdy and look dump passes off. And you saw what a weapon and a security blanket Kelce can be for Mahomes when he's hobbling. He's hopping on one leg. It doesn't make a difference. That just means, okay, Kelce, don't run a 7-yard route, run a 3-yard route, and I'm going to toss it to you and make something happen down the field. The tight end in this league has become huge in the red zone. They become huge on, as quarterbacks scramble, you can have a DB covering a wide receiver and stick with him, but you can have usually an inside linebacker, some linebacker who's covering a tight end, and when the quarterback scrambles, extends a play, that tight end is going to find a way to get open more often than not. Niners, maybe a little different story. We could talk about that, but yeah, Kelce's great, man, because I mean, he may go down as the greatest tight end in the league, but what's funny is that in league history, is just like the three-pointer is changing basketball, the way that the tight end is used now is changing. So there's a reason why you went from, the Shannon Sharp, Tony Gonzalez, these kind of tight ends, and you've moved along to Gronk and, Jimmy Graham was great, but he couldn't stay healthy. And, they become, receivers. They become just as good at receiving as, some of the wide receivers are. The numbers are gaudy. And it's because of the way the game is played now. So my props this week will be, it's the week of the tight end. I have 3 tight end props this week. I expect 3 of the 4 tight ends to have great games.
Since being drafted in 2013, Kelce has played in 191 consecutive games. Astonishing in a league where injuries. There's
ankles. Injuries. He's a big guy. He's getting, and he's 14 catches. How many targets he's going to have? I mean, think of how many times he's getting, just trucked by a humongous defender. That was the position that I played.
So we're in
agreement.
It
was a different position, but that was the position.
49ers, Eagles, thoughts?
So, if I had to pick something in the game, it would be scoring. You know what I mean? But if I'm saying who's going to win, that's a tough game, man. I think it's going to go over. That's a tough game to pick. I think if I have to pick a side of it, I think the Eagles. I do. I think the Eagles. Find a way to win at home.
Better defense.
I think the Niners have a better defense.
Better coaching.
I think
better defensive line.
I think the Niners have a better scheming coach. Better defensive line. The line is going to be for the Niners. But their secondary is weak, and that is a huge matchup. That's a huge matchup difference. They have a weak
Smith, AJ Brown.
The wide receiver. If Jalen Hurts gets any time at all, he'll be able to pick the San Francisco 49ers secondary apart. They have great inside linebackers. They have good defensive line pressure. So Hurts will not have a lot of time, and he will not have those running lanes that he's used to against this Niners team. But, and this is why it's a test. This is why I think the toughest test for Hurts. If he has improved enough in the passing game, where he can actually throw the passes downfield and his line gives him enough time, the 49ers are definitely beatable there. That's why, by the way, no matter if it's Mahomes or the Bengals, I think the Niners have a glaring weakness there.
For me, this is the best weekend of football because I love the game within the game. So, like, Eagles have an amazing offensive line. Travis Kelce's brother. You have Lane Johnson versus the amazing defensive line of the 49ers. And who's going to win that, right? And so offensive line. Eagles have a better offensive line than the 49ers?
Yeah, I believe so.
Wide receivers. Playmakers. Let's go playmakers. We'll go running backs and wide receivers in one because
it's very close. Very close because while McCaffrey probably takes the advantage, as the offensive playmaker, Miles Sanders does not get enough credit. And I was looking at his prop plays for this week, right? Because he would have had more if it wasn't such garbage time where he split the carries last week in a closer game. He actually is very, very good, and he's finally healthy. Playmaker-wise, I think McCaffrey's better, and you got the wide receivers, Brown and Smith, but I mean, the combination of Deebo Samuel and Ayuk, Kittle, and Goddard. By the way, Goddard averaged more yards per game than every tight end except Kelce. I mean, he's right up there with Kittle. I mean, Goddard's a great tight end also. I mean, people think I'm nuts. Look at the tight end play for the teams that go far. It is a huge key. It's a humongous weapon in today's offensive game.
Quarterback.
It's believe it or not, I mean, it's Jalen Hurts. Hurts is the better quarterback. These two played in college, by the way. You know that?
Yeah, Purdy was good, man. For Iowa State, he was a chucker. I think he had like 5 touchdowns versus Jalen Hurts.
So Purdy would not be doing this on 29 other NFL teams, right? Sure. He has a combination of weapons that no other team would be able to give him, and an offensive head coach. I say a quarterback coach, but Shanahan, who is going to scheme for him, right? I mean, the Eagles are going to pressure him. The Eagles are going to be in his face, and he's going to have to get rid of the ball. So I think Kittle has a good game. Kittle's over is only like 43 yards. I think he's going to double that. Yeah.
That's one play.
Yeah.
I guess you could say that about most of the. Something that surprised me this week was Mahomes' huge ankle injury kind of looked like Pollard's. Pollard's broke his ankle. Mm-hmm. It was crazy to watch those two kind of back to back. He was back in practicing, but did you see Christian McCaffrey with his calf didn't practice this week?
Yeah,
and I felt he's always out. I obviously you want to give a rest, but it's like you rush back the quarterback to say something up to the other team versus here the 49ers kind of held out a lot of their players who were injured.
You know what that reminds me of? Yes, 100%. That's exactly the word. Different, obviously, because it's injuries, but I remember playing football as a kid in the Northeast, and my father was a coach, and we used to play sometimes in the snow. And in snow games, if you wanted to play, you could not wear long sleeves. You had to go out there with your arms out. You had to go out there and stand on the field and look like this was not bothering you.
So none of the wide receivers that wear the hoodie underneath the pads.
Nothing.
No way.
No hoodies, no gloves, no nothing. You had to be out there, and you were out there early.
No gloves?
No gloves, no nothing. You were out there in the snow.
Savage.
And because you wanted the other team to be like, what the hell is going on over there? Like, they're not bothered by this. They get off the bus, and they're all like, where's the hot chocolates? And you all have blue jackets on, and you're out there on the field. We had kids doing like snow angels and stuff. And, it sets the tone before there's even a kickoff, right? Look, Mahomes could be more injured. High ankle sprain is not that's nothing to be messed with, right? He could be more injured, and they could be releasing, film from practice of him walking. I have no idea. He could be more injured, but if he
gets rolled up on in the game, even a little bit, like people ankle sprain.
Can I make you mad?
Huh?
Can I make you mad?
Sure.
The best drive they had last week when they won that game in a close game was when Henne came in quarterback. He had a masterful 99-yard drive. Remember, he took it from
I agree. I mean, why would that make me mad? Andy Reid is the GOAT, man. I love Andy Reid.
I'm not saying that the offense is a plug and play, and you can take Mahomes out and plug in Henne the same way the 49ers plugged in Brock Purdy. I don't want to take away from the greatness that is Mahomes, but the weapons do matter, and Chad Henne was able to take that same team while Mahomes was limping around on the sideline and in the blue tent, 99 yards for what was, I believe, the best drive of the day. So I'm not saying, Mahomes gets rolled up on. They're not exactly done. Sure, you want Mahomes out there, but it's not like that team is a nothing team on offense. We just saw it. That was and that was against a tough defense. The Jaguars' defense is, they're no slouch.
I mean, if someone asked me to hand to God, do I like Mahomes or Andy Reid more? It would be tough. You know how much I'm a huge Andy Reid believer. I think
he's chasing Tom Landry in playoff wins. I mean, just like real, like, I think Landry coached the Cowboys for 29 years. Just crazy, I think it's another round, but still.
All he does is win. Everywhere he goes, he wins. Maybe, and people will be like, he didn't win the Super Bowl with the Eagles. All right, man, it's hard to win. But
here's a good one. We'll say it now, and other people will be doing it with you, but we should find out if Andy Reid has any cards. And you should make an Andy Reid PC. Why the hell not? Why not?
So do you know the other guy I was thinking about that I should PC?
I know Belichick has cards.
You already mentioned him. Draymond. Like, we collect Rodman. Rodman rookie cards are legit. A cool Draymond PC. I know we don't love him now because we're like Curry and all that, but looking back, I think Draymond's going to be a
definitely be socially relevant. Remember when he told Paul Pierce he wasn't getting a farewell tour because he ain't Kobe? You thought you were Kobe. Remember when he told Paul Pierce, you're not getting that farewell tour. You thought you were Kobe? Yeah, I mean, like...
think about him now. That's filtered, and he has to still be... Imagine when he's like Charles Barkley's age, Shaq's age, right? Draymond was another guy. I was like, this starting PCs. So you said you had a few topics. What were they?
Well, we did some NFL. We did basketball. We did some stuff. I mean, if you could take a listen to some of the stuff that I did, part of what I tried to do, from an educational standpoint, we got some really good feedback in some of the episodes was, just, be careful. I watched an NBA documentary on NBA TV with Ian about the decade, the 2010s decade, and made some comparisons to people who are playing
2010
now.
2010 to 2020 or
2010 to 2020.
2020?
Yeah, 2010 to 2020. And, Ray Allen, Steph Curry breaking the three-point record, Linsanity coming out of nowhere and then disappearing just as quickly, and, like flash in the pan type, guys, rookies of the year, MVP Derrick Rose, just what you can learn from a decade of ball and extrapolate it to this decade and what you may or may not see, the rise and fall of the triple-double season average Russell Westbrook, and, the fact that, sure, we just saw a 60-point triple-double, but does everybody remember that James Harden did that last decade too?
Did you watch the interaction between Russ and that one lady interviewing him?
Yes. Yeah.
What's
funny, dude?
Yeah.
You love making fun of Westbrook, and obviously we crapped on Westbrook.
What are you talking? I don't make fun of Westbrook.
I mean, you called Josh Allen the Westbrook of the NFL the second after you called Josh Allen a fraud. So were you complimenting him somehow? Probably not.
There's nuance. So what I saw we think okay. So our pinnacle is winning championships, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But it's very difficult to win a championship.
Correct.
I mean, that's obvious, stating the obvious, but it's very hard. There's a lot of amazingly great players who never won championships. Dan Marino had a 16-0 season and didn't win a championship.
No, he was not on the 72 Dolphins. He was not. He was not on the 16. It was a 14-0 season. Marino was never undefeated. That was 1972 Dolphins. Marino didn't start till 84. But he had a very good season his rookie year where he won, I think, 13 games. He
wasn't on the 16-0 Dolphins.
He wasn't on the 72. He wasn't. It's a 14-0 Dolphins. That was Shula's team with like Larry Zonka. I think Dan Marino was a child when that came.
When I watched that interaction with Russ, I realized how much the media has shifted our view of him and how every interaction of his has been really terrible. Media does a frame, right?
Yeah.
They framed him like a bad teammate, a chuck, a poor decision maker, and we all have flaws. Like not we all, everyone has flaws in their game. But what I took from that was like he's done amazing stuff. Maybe he'll never win the big trophy, whatever, the finals or any of that. But he has a really respected career.
You know what I took from it? I took a reaffirming of my investment plays as a contrarian. And when I watched Russell Westbrook, I was thinking about Joe Burrow. And let me explain. Russell Westbrook was the MVP of the league. He was a winner. He was the next big thing when he had, a 31 point, 10 assists, 10 rebound season, the likes of which no one had seen since the Big O. And this was a guy who was taking the league by storm and was just, top of the world. And then all of a sudden he forgot how to play basketball, according to the media. They showed you him on the layup line, doing the finger roll over the backboard and bricking shots. And the narrative on Russ became that he was just, somebody who was terrible. He's now a sixth man and he cannot play and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we all bought it. We all...
West Brick, right? He was like, stop putting respect on my name, he even said.
But when you get beat up so badly, and part of it, in both episodes that I did this week, I talked about Westbrook as a potential buy, as somebody when it's all said and done, that people are going to be able to pick up cheap now because he is West Brick. But when you look at the body of work of someone like him, he may be thought of as one of the guys who was the player of the decade, an MVP, one of the top 10 players from that, from the 2010 to 2025 kind of,
out of interest, where would you guys put Russ in just this last 10 years?
So what's funny is the rankings will be very low, and it's almost going to be laughable, and that's why I love the contrarian play, because look what it took. It took an exchange with the media. That was nothing, amazing to it, but all of a sudden it's like, oh, look how great, look how amazing this was, because the dude's rep has been beaten down so badly. And when you're beaten down so badly, I've talked about this, I call it the Martha Stewart effect, right? We love, as a society, to take someone who has been put on a pedestal and knock the legs out from under him.
Well, first we put him on a pedestal.
There's only one thing we love more than that. is after they've been beaten down and we've had our pound of flesh and we've watched Martha go to prison, we watch them climb back up. And we love that climb back up to a point where she's doing commercials and smoking weed with Snoop Dogg. And she's built up that street cred now from her time in prison. And I think of Joe Burrow, because Joe Burrow is sitting on that pedestal right now. Everything's perfect for Joe. Everything's beautiful for Joe. That seat he's on is a little precarious, because it's not going to take much for somebody to knock one of the legs out and the rest of the legs fall.
The hero's journey, the hero's arc that we do in America is very interesting. You're 100% right. We build them up. Britney Spears is who comes to mind, because that was the first one. We build them up, tear them down, and then help them grow. So in that case, you remember David Peck?
Of course.
He had some 1990 cards signed by a former president.
Yep.
Hero's arc? Are we going to see a Martha Stewart effect?
I got to say, I hope not. And I'll tell you why. We don't really talk politics too much, but everybody's in things for themselves. And I read a lot of articles about the enrichment of the Kirshner family since Trump's time in office, and how much money was made in deals with the Saudis and all kinds of stuff like that.
Is that right?
Yeah. And if your platform is that you're going to go in there and not be like everybody else and not make yourself rich and not inside trade like Pelosi and not, become a multimillionaire like every single member of the government, and you hold yourself out there as somebody who's not doing that, and then come to find out you're doing it too. If you don't believe me, don't worry. I'll walk into my garage. I got some confidential, top secret, classified documents in my garage. I'll pull them out. I'll show them to you. No, but we don't talk politics, man.
I threw him a curveball, guys, and he hit it out of the park, as only Mr. Cage does.
Dude, I got to tell you, you were missed. I can't just talk here and there for 25 minutes to myself.
Yes, you can.
And the biggest reason is if I'm the only one here, the audio becomes weird when I do this.
Dead space, dead noise.
You know what I mean? You have to talk over my taking a sip of soda.
Loud noises. I love lamb.
Yummy.
Even if it's just to say I love lamb.
I love lamb.
That's enough.
Dude, listen, it's a different vibe. People love the back and forth. We have so much crap to talk about. I'll throw a topic out there to you because we've done some NFL, because it's NFL championship weekend, and obviously we're 37 minutes in. We haven't talked yet about PWCC at all. So we should probably jump into some PWCC stuff.
So people, so people know, we're gonna do both episodes. We're just gonna clip it out. It will be 2 episodes today, so people could listen to the PWCC, and they can listen to this because we had to catch up anyway.
All right, cool. I thought we were just gonna spend 25 minutes now doing PWCC and get
we will, but I'll make it into it. Cage, we will, but I'll make it easy on people. I'll clip it out for them, so it'll be 2 episodes. So if they want auction stuff, they'll go to the PWCC.
Look at you! You come back.
If they want NFL talk,
2 episodes, 2 episodes in one. So I got one for you, and then we can jump over to the PWCC stuff. The NBA, interesting stuff.
So much
fun. I'm excited for it. As we record this, we're a few hours away from the Lakers against the Celtics, and I don't know if you want to talk about
Jokic and Embiid started in 8 minutes.
Jokic and Embiid today, and what that means, and one of them makes the All-Star starters and one of them doesn't, and whether or not that's relevant, or Embiid has a chip on his shoulder from it, or who knows. My talking point is this: the Memphis team.
Yeah, I got some thoughts.
The Golden State team.
Yep.
A lot of these teams are bad on the road. Very different teams on the road.
So can I tell you something interesting about this? I saw today there's this Reddit thread on Jaren Jackson Jr. and how at home he averages double the amount of blocks and steals than on the road.
They're a different team. I've watched a lot of their games this year. Different team.
You're asking why that is?
Yeah, is it I'm laying you up here because you've been gone for a week, you've been up in the mountains. I'm sure you found some Colorado herbal enhancement somewhere in the trees, with the trees, and you're all about energy. And what I see when I watch that team is a very different energy at home than they have on the road. And I want to know if that's what you see, or you just see this parity and teams get up. And when you look at Golden State, who's a champ, and Memphis, who's looking to become the next Golden State, do teams just give them their best shot when that's the road team coming in? Talk to me. What do you think? Or is it just a parity thing? Is it just that these teams are just anyone is beatable on any given night?
You're asking why are teams better at home than on the road?
Oh, those two specifically. I mean, look at their records. Look at their records. I mean, they are really bad on the road, both of those. And those are two very good teams, especially the Grizzlies.
I don't have an answer for it. I will say this is one of my favorite seasons to watch. Mm-hmm. And I think that, like, if you look at let's use the best team from the 90s, the Bulls. You have Jordan, fine, we'll add Pippen. But then, like, if we go down the list, the rest of the guys were, like, okay players. Like, I mean, they had one skill set, maybe Paxton, Kerr. You know, if you look at just the Magic today, who are an okay team, you have Franz Wagner, who's a fantastic player. Pablo Banchero. We don't talk about Markelle Fultz anymore, but he's really good. Like, he's playing very well. You have Bol, who's like the 8th guy off the bench, who's 7'1", who shoots threes and can do. So if you go just top to the bottom, you could even look at Houston, who's just a joke of a team. You still have, like, their 6 best players, Eric Gordon, who's an amazing 3-point shooter. So you just have the depth of talent in today's league. You can't take a day off. And I don't know if you're like this, but I hate traveling in general. I've never traveled in a charter plane, so I don't know. But I think people love their routine. I think athletes, more than anyone, like if you listen to the JJ Redick podcast, he knew exactly what he was going to do at what time every single game. Game day. Like, I wake up at this time, I eat breakfast at this time, I nap at this time. He says, like, to a T. So it's obviously hard to keep that routine and that schedule when you're traveling. All right. And I think when you have so much talent, right, and the floor on the NBA has risen so much, any little 1% decline in performance, you're cooked, and I think you see that.
Memphis is 20-3 at home, 20-3 at home, and 11-15 away. All right, I think it's the youth of it. I think you're part of your routine. I think it's feeding off the energy. New Orleans, another young team, 17-8 at home, 9-15 on the road. Those are two of the top 4 teams by record in the West. Cleveland, another young team, right? One of the top 4 or 5 teams in the East. 20-5 at home, 10-16 on the road.
Wow. Lost one to OKC last night too.
I mean, he's a big. I mean, even Indy, who's not the greatest team, but another young team, 16-10 at home, 8-17 on the road. I mean, these are
Indy, like, if you guys aren't watching Mathurin play, man, you guys take a look at this guy off the bench. He is such a problem. He's thick too. He's a big boy for a 20-year-old.
You didn't really see this. You didn't really see this too much. That kind of a spread. That home and away, but home field advantage. I mean, like somebody like Boston, 18-6 at home, 17-9 away. That's good. You know what I mean? Like, that's good.
The only thing with Boston is if you watch them early in the season, they had a point to prove, right? So they coming off of a loss in the finals, you want to start the next year typically showing people that we deserve to be back there. They came out with that chip on their shoulder where the Warriors started the year flatter than I've ever seen. What I'm worried about now with the Grizz, Steven Adams went down, and actually, like, he's the Travis Kelce of that team because he gets guys wide open threes with his huge ass body. Same thing. I'm worried about the Celtics, man. They've gone through a few injuries recently. Marcus Smart. It's not as bad as it appeared. I thought that was an ACL for sure. It was only an ankle.
Yeah, so, I thought it was also. It looked like knee, and then it turned out to just be ankle. It's just one of those things. Look, we start talking about, like, betting on do props and stuff like that. One of the crazy things, and I think it's parity, but I mean, that home field advantage is huge. There's only 2 teams in the West, 2 total teams in all the West that have road records, winning road records.
Are the Kings one of them?
The Kings are one. The Kings actually are the best at 11-9, and Denver is 12-11. They could go to 500 if they lose to the Sixers.
One of the best investments you guys can make is NBA League Pass, and then tune into. What's cool if you do it on, like, a smart TV, you could choose which announcers you want. So you could, like,
the local feed,
right? Like the local feed. And if you do that, you could get, because these guys know their team better than anyone. They watch them every single game. I love that. I love listening to the local feed of different teams to get a pulse on what this team's doing, why they're doing it, and how they're doing it. Really helps.
In 2019, I used to watch every Hornets game with the Hornets feed to watch them talk about Devontae Graham. It was amazing.
Didn't you know everything that happened?
Yes.
A step before it hit the news. Yeah. I know. Like, here's one. You guys aren't even talking about LaMelo anymore, but that Hornets team when LaMelo's in is a serious contender. When he's out, they're a joke.
They are terrible.
Rozier plays better. LaMelo, if they could get so we're talking about Wembanyama to all these teams. We have not talked about Wemby to Charlotte and playing with LaMelo. That team instantly becomes a 4 seed if Wemby goes there.
That's right how now, they are in that top 3. Remember, in the lotto, it's those 3 that have a chance right now. The bottom 3 in the league are Houston, Detroit, and Charlotte.
I can't imagine if he goes to Houston's such a terrible. Houston has no culture, man. They have no identity as a team. That team, I would be really upset if he went to the Pistons or Houston. It would be kind of. I know he's a superstar. Well, I don't know.
One of my favorite things that happened this month is people are buying the Sports Illustrated for kids. I got people offering to send me magazines because I didn't buy them. I want our audience to get them, and I got people posting pictures. They got them graded. Somebody got them graded with ISA and was selling them on eBay with an ISA grading. I mean, look at that.
They're all going to be all center.
Every one of them. It is what it is. So, who the hell knows? But yeah, man, so much fun. Lots of fun.
Any other topics before we jump in?
No, I mean, you want to talk about the greatness that is LeBron, Anthony Davis back? Do the Lakers make a push here? Lakers make a run? Adding Rui Hachimura.
It's 50-50. You can flip a coin. I'll put it that way. You have no idea what to expect from this team. I don't think you really want to meet them in the playoffs. But I also don't think, you can't trust their shooting.
They start today off 1 game out of the play-in. That may change, though, because they're playing Boston today. Although the Knicks beat Boston, so everybody's beatable.
When you watch even the Grizz, you watch the Warriors, you watch the Celtics, they have a style of how they play, right? I don't think the Lakers have any style. I think they just play iso ball, dribble, penetrate, kick out, and if their shots are hitting, they're going to win games. If they're missing their shots, they're going to get blown out, and if LeBron could put up a 45-point game, maybe he'll keep them in. I don't think they have a style of basketball. I think they have some star power, Russ, AD, LeBron, and then maybe Schroeder could go off for 25. But it's very random. You're never going to be able to predict it because there's no consistency. There's no style to get open shots.
Can I tell you something I don't like about basketball?
What's that?
I don't think it was always like this, but I guess maybe it's why there's more points being scored. I mean, yesterday the Bucks had 85 points at halftime. That was like a full game when I was watching as a kid.
And only watching the game by 10, by the way.
Oh, I watched the whole game. Ian and I were watching it. Like, this could be the greatest comeback, but they were able to just, it never really got below that 10. Like, you never really. Trust me, the Pacers had chances. They were missing threes. Buddy Love. They had a lot of people who could have gotten in the game and they just didn't. Anyway, Giannis put up 41. But so here's what it is. I was watching the Minnesota-Memphis game.
Yep, me too.
Right, I flipped over to it
on my flight. I was flying back. The best flight I've ever had. If you want to have a good flight, watch a game. United. Thank you. Shout out.
I turned it on with about 2 minutes to go in the first quarter.
Okay.
And I watched it until about 6 minutes to go in the second quarter. So let's just call it. It's basically the second third. If you're a roulette bettor, you can bet on first third, second third, and third third. It's because there's 36 numbers to bet on. So 12, 12, and 12. If you split up each half into thirds, it's 24 minutes of game time. There's 8 minutes. Then there's the second 8 minutes will take you. It's like the last. Yeah, it's like the last couple of minutes of the. No, it's 24, so it's 8. So it'll take you like the last couple minutes of the first quarter and the first 5 minutes or so of the second quarter. All right, so just figure it out, right? 24, right? 8, no.
Time. The second unit time.
Exactly that. So when I turned the game on, I said to Ian, I'm like, we're not going to watch this. He goes, why? I said, because obviously everybody's either hurt or taking the day off. Because I watched for a bunch of minutes. I watched the start. There was no Ja. There was no Edwards. There was no Russell. There was no Jaren Jackson Jr. There was no Bane. It turned out Bane wasn't playing. But I'm watching this game, and I'm like, who the hell are these guys? I'm watching, Naz Reid go to town on people, and I'm watching basically G League basketball. I'm watching, bad ball, and it's a lot of
Naz
mistakes.
Reid is a trade asset right now.
I like Naz Reid, by the way. But I was just the first name that came to mind because he actually was playing well. But you see a lot of balls all over the place. You see a lot of turnovers. You see a lot of just not a lot of defense. And I'm watching this, and I'm like, the NBA is weird. It's like the teams agree at this point in the game, the second third of each half, we're both teams going to take out our A squad and let our B squads play against each other. Like, there's no one good in the game. And it's like, all right. And at that point,
they're all really good.
I get it, but they're all not good enough to be the starting five. And what's funny is why I'm saying this is not to. Yeah, but I'm not. It's not that.
Away their bench
I don't care about the Timberwolves. This happens in every game. It's
not about the Pacers when you bring in Mathurin, who's probably their best player off the second unit.
So some teams have a good sixth man, and some teams will let some of their starters stay out there. The point I'm trying to make is that this is a very different NBA than when I watched, and the guys would play 43 minutes a game. You know what I mean? And, I watch this with, like, LeBron. I watch this like, okay, first one to the bench. 6 minutes into the game, boom, we got to sub him. Got to getting him rested. Let him drink. Put the towel over his head, the whole deal. And I wonder if that's adding to longevity of players. I wonder if that's keeping them fresh for the playoffs. I wonder, and I thought of this with the Lakers, right? Because,
making them get hurt more.
This is where we're going. And 100%. Remember,
way more injuries. Do you guys know
this was the Kevin Durant thing back and forth, right? Where
at his peak, from 96 to 98, Jordan didn't miss a game.
And he played like 40 minutes a game or some crazy number, Yeah.
He didn't miss a game. And now the best athletes today play like 45, 50, 55. So, sorry I cut you off, but...
Yeah, so, I mean, it's pretty crazy to see the difference. Look, Kyrie is towards the top of the league now in minutes per game because KD's injured. LeBron is probably creeping up because Anthony Davis was injured. And they're not hurt, and they're putting up great numbers, and they're doing well. And, it's just one of those fun little things where the game has changed a lot. And you wind up having it was surreal to me because you have this segment of the game. It's like, okay, did the coaches get together and say, okay, you know what? When we took our starters out, it was a 10-point game. Let these idiots just play against each other for a little while, and it'll be 8 or 12 or 10, and we'll put the starters back in, and they'll figure it out.
It frustrates me because the Suns had a game where they should have beat the Mavs. Luka went down.
Yep.
They were up by 8 points with a minute left in the first quarter, and they let Spencer Dinwiddie go off for like 8 points to close the first quarter, tie the game up, and then the Mavs just kind of got a lead.
Beat them.
And it was like, that's your game right there. Forget the fourth quarter. Keep your starters in and run them off the court. You just and this isn't just any game here, son. This team embarrassed you on your own court. Why are you pulling your starters now? It was very frustrating to watch.
Dallas is another one of those teams, by the way, that very rarely wins on the road. They have another. That's another one. I didn't look up their numbers. It's another team that is bad on the road. So that kind of a game. 9 and 15 on the road, Dallas.
In 10 years, and I personally don't think that Luka's ever going to win a championship.
Ooh.
If the Mavs and Luka don't win a championship, we'll be talking about the Luka effect. And okay, when I said LeBron doesn't make his players better. What I meant by that is there are guys who are
doesn't make his players better.
D'Angelo Russell is a momentum scorer.
Yep.
Spencer Dinwiddie is a momentum scorer. When you have someone in that lineup like Luka who holds the ball for 20 seconds of every shot clock, it sort of hurts the Tim Hardaway and the Spencer Dinwiddie. And I actually think I'm interested to see what this team does with Luka out for a few games because you could see Spencer Dinwiddie has game. He took over that game. He was the best offensive player versus Chris Paul, Mikal Bridges, all that. And I think Luka, as great as he is, he really hurts the upside of some of the players around him. Some players he makes better, maybe Christian Wood, but some players like momentum guys like Tim Hardaway, Spencer Dinwiddie, really struggle in his presence. Kristaps Porzingis is another guy that comes to mind.
Love it. I think that's pretty awesome. Guys, I think I'm going to do this, so I might as well announce it. That'll lock me in. If you made it 55 minutes in, I think March 9th is the date. I've been asked to be a guest speaker at the next Collectors Night for Burgundy Collectibles in the city. I think the panel is going to have Burgundy Collectibles, Burgundy if you're from New York. I think Rick Probstein is going to be a speaker on the panel with me, and I think one of the guys from University Archives. It's another auction house that does a lot of presidential stuff, and I'm sure they'll fill out the panel. I'll give you more information as we go, and you guys can help me because I think I have to bring a show and tell portion in addition to just speaking. What should I bring as cool pieces to show people and stuff. I don't have the same kind of craziness that Darren Ravel and Rick Probstein have in my collection, but I'm sure I could find a couple of pieces that'd be fun to show.
Marilyn Monroe's dinner ticket with John F. Kennedy Jr. Marilyn Monroe ticket with Mickey Mantle.
Maybe I'll bring like my Billy Ripken error card. That'll be fun. That'll be a nice conversation.
And signed by Billy Ripken saying fuckface. Sign and fuckface.
Sign and says, Cal is not my dad. Love you, Andrew.
So
people love that.
How is that not his dad? Doesn't even make any sense.